What's up, studs and honeys? We're kicking it up a brand new edition. We're doing in-person interviews now, so be ready and live to stimulate those senses with the Ardor and Grit experience. Our first guest doing this new special grip on things is my lovely friend Matt Rose.
Hello.
All right, Matt, you want to give us a brief introduction on who you are, what you're about, what you're doing with yourself?
Yeah, Matt Rose. I live in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. Grew up down the block from you. Grew up wrestling with you since we were about 7 years old or so. Right now I'm a business consultant, so I work in the practice of finance. Went to Limestone University, wrestled for 4 years there. I was a 4-year starter, and I'm happy to be here and give a little Matt Rose to the Ardor and Grit experience audience.
Well, there's a lot of Matt Rose to give, dude.
It's a lot of Matt Rose to give. Not in height, but
not in height. We were all short and chubby.
Yeah.
So breaking out the transitions of your life, wrestling has been the pivot point for your existence in any professional endeavor you've been a part of.
I'd say the purpose.
In purpose.
Yeah.
So breaking it down, when did you get into wrestling?
So it's funny because the black mats behind you, it's from where we first learned how to wrestle. The rec program gave me those. Started wrestling when I was 5 years old over at our rec program in Hasbrook Heights. My dad was a high school coach in New Jersey for Beckton Regional High School back in the 80s. So as soon as I came out of the womb, I was like getting my diapers changed on the mats and looking up to guys who are winning matches and stuff. So I like to think that I'm like bred for it. Just kind of born into it. My older brothers wrestled too. So my dad introduced me through the rec program. I was wrestling there through middle school. We went through right through 8th grade. So I started my journey in rec wrestling, which most kids do nowadays. And once I kind of got into middle school, I started doing the club stuff. But starting out, it was like, didn't feel like I was one of those guys who was like one of the top competitors off the jump. I was like short, little chubby kid, not aggressive at all, was not flexed out, teed up all the time, losing matches, winning matches here and there. But it was always like the below average guy. Once we got into middle school and when you were in elementary school, we were wrestling and training a lot, but I just still wasn't getting progress. So I started going to club, started taking it seriously, found myself at Apex Wrestling School. So that's where I kind of think I really started to buy in. It was like, okay, this is the way things are supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to train. This is how you get better. And, Damian Logan really showed me that process along with Eric Norgard and all the other guys who were involved back in the day. So about 15 years ago, I think. It's crazy. It's crazy to say. I think Apex has been going for 22 years now. So, I like to say that Apex kind of propelled me and showed me how to be the best version of myself as a wrestler.
100%, dude.
So that's where it all started. Heights wrestling, and then, to Apex and forward.
Yeah, well, there's always like those little transitions in between too. Like club shopping is a common theme with young athletes. You got to find like that collective whole of the community you want to be a part of.
Exactly.
And we both went through Olympic and we went to Scorpions and all those other clubs. And we finally found our home with Apex.
Absolutely.
Because we were able to resonate with that community.
Yeah, that's the one thing. And, and the audience doesn't, but I help out at Apex now. Have been for years since I was in college. And it's just the one thing that, and I'm sure you can attest to it as well. It's a family. It's not like a place where people just come in, wrestle live, go home. Like coaching it now is so surreal because you have these kids who are 5, 6 to 10 years old, training, beating each other's asses, getting better, and then going home and hanging out and playing Fortnite, and then sleeping over each other's house, waking up in the morning, and then coming training again. So it's almost like created like a college campus. I like to think about it, where kids are just like wrestling, going home, hanging out, coming back and wrestling again. So I like to say it's like a family. It's Apex family. Yeah. And I think that's the little bit of a difference. There's other clubs that do it like that too. But, this is, like you said, it's where we found our home. And it always felt like that coming back, like from college, and I would train there, you'd train there. It's like, it feels like comforting to
100%.
be there.
It's such a tight knit community too. You go back home, you got Damian, Eric, Alex, all the studs rolling in there. And on top of it, it's always like nice to like resonate back with who you are, because that's a part of your identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a part of like
the people who molded you. It's getting back in front of the people who taught you how to be the best versions of yourself, how to get to the best versions of yourself. And then especially now coming back as an adult and like going from a student to now it's like, oh, we're like peers now. It's weird. It's weird, but it's awesome once you settle in, because now I have like a great relationship with all the coaches that have known me since I was like 13.
Yeah.
You know, I can go out, we hang out, grab dinner. It's surreal.
It's got to be crazy on their end too.
Yeah, like we were just in Wildwood Duels, and we went out to dinner. I had a team dinner with all the kids and all the coaches. Fiance Victoria came with me, and I'm sitting at the dinner table, like having a drink with all the coaches. We're like talking about all the day, like great wrestling we saw at Wildwood, and it was just like I sat back for a second. I was like, wow, this is like full circle. You know, you went from the kids table like at Thanksgiving, and now we're at the big boy table, like hanging out with everyone. I like Eric's cracking jokes, Damien's cracking jokes. It was great. It's a really cool experience to get back into the swing of things on the coaching side.
Definitely. And when you were going about that, you found your community at Apex, and it resonated with who you are right now with your identity. Apex shows you the standards, the expectations that you're going to live through and elevate your career through the sport of wrestling. You started really finding out that this is a sport for me. Like you said, weren't the most athletic kid in the book.
Yeah.
Same here. I was a short, 5-foot fat kid, just as wide as I was tall. But we both ended up figuring it out based off our attitude towards the sport.
Yeah.
And that was a club that helped us resonate with that attitude.
Absolutely.
Because you had great role models there. So when you were working your way up your career, let's say from middle school to high school, obviously that's a huge transition. And working with high school and middle school kids now, what do you think was the biggest value adds to your performance being in a room like Apex helped elevate you to that new height with your devotion with wrestling?
Yeah. So the biggest thing was, I remember when we were little, and my dad always said this when we were going like the weekend rec stuff, when we'd go like give out numbers and you just like get paired with people who are your experience set. And my dad would be like, that kid's a machine. He's like, he's out of your realm. That kid's a machine. That kid's a machine. So when I was young, I had this mentality of like, oh, I'm never going to beat that guy. I'm never going to be that guy, and I'm never going to beat that guy, just because they're a level above me. They're like superhuman. And then starting training at Apex, and I'm wrestling with these guys, like training, drilling, wrestling live every single day, like 50-person room of state placers out the wazoo. And all of a sudden, like closing the gap on them, like these people bleed blood just like I do, you know. And especially Damien's so big on that aspect of like, you respect people, but not too much, right? You can't have that as a competitor. You want to respect your opponent, but don't respect the accolades, right? You're there to win a match just like he's there. So that's where it kind of came to perspective, where I was like, okay, I'm meant to be here still. All because I'm not there yet. I'm still meant to be here. I'm still meant to be here to get better and find the best version of Matt Rose to propel myself. So I think that was the switch, right? I started getting a lot more experience around those higher level guys, and things started falling into place a little bit.
Definitely. I remember watching, I think it was like the Tim Ferriss. You know Tim Ferriss?
No.
So he's got like, he like owned a supplement company, got a really cool story. He's got this book like 4 Hour Work Week, for Chef, all this stuff. But I
think I heard of 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah, he had a podcast with like a while back, a couple years ago, with Mike Novogratz. You know Novogratz, right? And I think Novogratz, I don't want to misquote him, but he said something along the lines like, rich guys and poor guys all shit in the same toilet.
Yeah.
All right. And that was like something that clicked with me hardcore, because I was like, even at a wrestling level, like you got these like super elite guys, and then you got these guys that are kind of figuring it out. But once you come together, shit in that same toilet, whether it's in a club setting or whether it's in the same wrestling room, you kind of resonate with that person a little bit more, and it helps you grow to that standard. So putting things into perspective, that like even these like super elite wrestlers, if you're just able to be in the room with them, you are the people you surround yourself with, and you have to elevate your standard and expectation to what they present, which is awesome. And that's how you grow. Yeah. So when you were going about your career in high school, you really started like hunkering down, just because on a personal level, we see it. You went from a parochial school to coming to public, like to coming to a public school. You want to explain that transition and how you're able to jump from different environments? Because going from Bergen Catholic at the time was like the top team in the state, right? And then going to Hasbrook Heights, small 1.5 by 1.5 mile Group 1 school. And going through that mentality, like that adjustment, and then the mentality you brought into the high school room to help elevate your career.
There was a shift, definitely. You know, I don't want to say anything bad about any high school programs, but it wasn't for me. the persona that I thought that I had to take on to be part of that team wasn't the person that I wanted to be. And certain things happened, and I'm thankful for the way that it happened, that I decided to transfer out. And I remember I was like school shopping, and I did not want to go public. It was like I took on this persona where like public schools are not the way to go. Mm-hmm. And you remember when I first got back, walking around the hallways, I was like, I'm too good for this place. And quickly I get humbled by your brother. You know what I mean? Like, your brother came in as a freshman and he humbled me. I was like, man, I got to put that aside and I got to figure out a different way to approach it. Right. And it came fast. And all of a sudden it's like, it's saying, my coaches used to tell me, like, you got to just trust it. You got to trust the process. Right. I didn't think that's where I needed to be, but it's where I needed to be. And it's like, whether it was God or, me getting rejected from Bergen Catholic, and like, not academically, but athletically, it was what I needed. And it taught me a lot of lessons, and I held a lot of animosity in myself for a while, but it was the best thing that could have ever happened. Right. Cause I mean, we built a great friendship to now, like, we're brothers. Yeah. Mickey's my brother, all of our friends that we grew up there. Now I'm like back in the realm that bred me, right? From those back rec wrestling days where you're just doing it for fun. Now we're chasing dreams together. Mm-hmm. It's an awesome moment to come back. When I started buying into that, it started clicking a lot better. So, I mean, but talking back, so coming to Bergen, transferring in, I think the biggest part was putting my ego to the side, because I thought I was a big bad guy coming in from a parochial school, which wasn't the case, because I was a small fish still, right, in the scheme of things. But once I bought in and really understood, like, this is home now, and this is what I have to embrace, and this is what I want to embrace, things got a lot better, a lot faster. So, we kind of had an awesome synergy as well, where all of us would train at high school practice, then we'd go to Apex. You know what I mean? It was like, again, it's like wrestling in college. We just figured it out. We figured our niche. And, you and your brother really taught me how to let go of that serious side of myself, which I credit you guys to this day, because now I found my goofy and I'm able to, bring myself back to this, like, ground level and be like, dude, everyone's a person. Everyone's here to just have a great time in life, and that's, you and your family have taught me that 100%. And I, coming back was probably, you guys are one of the best reasons why I came back and made the best thing of high school for me.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. So when you were in high school, you come to Heights, and you're in the family. Mm-hmm. All right. Because we're a tiny town. So everyone's super duper, like, super close. Mm-hmm. And we got, like, Matt DeLera, who wrestled at Campbell. Mm-hmm. We got, like,
Mark Mastro was there too.
Mark Mastro went to UPenn. Mm-hmm. Even, like, Mauro Altamura played football at Montclair State.
He could have wrestled in college.
He was a stud. Mm-hmm. We had all these guys around us in this tiny Group 1 program, and we were all able to elevate ourselves because we wanted to do something great. Yeah. All right, whether it was wrestling or not.
And we all enjoyed each other's presence too. Yeah. But sorry.
No, which is important. And it's like, enjoying each other's presence helps you elevate your purpose with the sport. Mm-hmm. So coming back into the room and realizing, like, wow, I could actually have potential here. Mm-hmm. All right. Like, I have a family. I have a core group of guys that I've known since I was a short little chubby squirt. All right. And now I'm back, 3 years later, mm-hmm. and able to get back into the routine of things. What was your mentality shift for you to all of a sudden carry that over into your performance? Because obviously you have to confront, like you said, that ego. Mm-hmm. And sometimes your ego could detract you from the clarity that needs to be at play. So what made you realize, or how did you shift your mindset to realizing, like, this is a resource that I'm a part of? This isn't just about me. This is about something greater than me.
I think what helped was getting challenged in the room. Okay. Right. I mean, whether my junior year I came back and I was with Mark. Mark mm-hmm. placed in the state that year. Yeah. He did an awesome job. I think he took 5th. He beat some studs on the way there that he was not supposed to. Mm-hmm. And every day it was like I was banging with him in the room. And then, Mark graduated. Next year, your brother comes up as a freshman, who was a state placer as a freshman. And I found, and even Delara climbed the ranks really quick, and he was a challenging partner to have in the room as well. Yeah. So it was like, no matter where I went, whether it was Apex or in the room in Heights, I had good quality partners who were all on the same, like, line. We were all there to get better and have a goal in mind. So it was like never leaving that environment of, like, iron sharpens iron, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when did you realize that you wanted to take your wrestling career to college.
I always did. I remember being in middle school. I think it was a geometry class, and we had to do like a project. And I was like, I want to wrestle in West Virginia. And my brother was dating this girl who was going to West Virginia. I was like, I want to wrestle in West Virginia, win a national title. Nice. Things change, but like I always I want to go to college and I want to wrestle in the NCAA. So I knew that was something from the beginning, but I didn't know how to get there. Even in high school, like my accolades didn't really match up to be a D1 athlete. But once senior year came around, I committed to Buffalo and shipped out there like a week after graduation, high school graduation. Went there, did a summer semester, and I started training with the team. It was cool. As you know, like your high school to college transition is big and it's tough. Mm-hmm. It's tough because it's a different intensity. It's a different masculinity. A lot of urgency in a college wrestling room. So most high school athletes they haven't had that level of experience yet. Now it's a little bit different because these regional training centers, kids get a lot of exposure to it early. But at that time, I didn't. So went to Buffalo, and that was like, I'm here finally. Like I had this goal. I'm at a D1 program, and I was excited. But my idea of college wrestling when I was going from high school to college was like balanced of fun and training, having fun and training. And when I was at Buffalo, it was different. It didn't feel synchronized to me, similar to how I felt like I didn't fit in at Bergen. I didn't fit in at Buffalo. Then I think I quit in college in September. So I got out there in July. I quit in September, and I was like, I'm done, dude. I'm not getting takedowns in the room. I'm getting takedowns every once in a while. I think it took me like 3 weeks to get my first college takedown. I can remember exactly what it was. This was like, holy crap! I finally am scoring again. Like things are falling into place. But it just wasn't for me. I didn't have a great relationship with the coach. I didn't feel myself getting better as an athlete. My grades were fine. Academics were never an issue, but it just wasn't. It didn't feel it. So I thought I was done wrestling. Like I'm done. Big bad issue. I don't think my dad talked to me for like 3 weeks. Then about a month later, I got a phone call from my dad that my brother Bobby died. So that was like, yeah, I'm going home. Yeah. I had to come home. So I came home for a little bit, missed an exam, and I kind of just figured out I got to be here for a while. So I was like, listen, I'm not wrestling at Buffalo anymore. I'm going to pull my card. I'm going to come home. I'm going to figure it out. And then that's when, if you remember, I came home and I was like, I'm staying here. I started coming back into the Heights room as a volunteer coach. And that's what sparked the light in me again to be like, you got to wrestle, dude. Because I started going in there just to give me a purpose, right? It was like really melancholy time. Like my brother just died. My family's not in the best of moods. So wrestling was my escape again. And I was just there coaching. You were a senior or you graduated?
I think I was a senior.
Yeah.
We're 2 years apart, right?
Yeah. So I came back in and I started helping you, Mickey, and Matt. And it felt like the old days again. Yeah. It was like we're just hanging out. I mean, I remember times where I'm getting ahead of myself. When I was home, I didn't just not go to school. I went to Bergen Community College. I did a part-time semester.
Yeah.
So once I got back in the room, and I remember I started helping out at Apex too, things said like, listen, I gotta get back into it. I started getting the itch again. The light fired back up. So I started reaching out to coaches, and I started shopping again. So as I was helping you guys out and helping back out at Apex, I visited a couple colleges. I looked at Kutztown, I looked at JWU, and somewhere along the lines, Damien gets a phone call from this guy, Carl Reed, down in South Carolina. And it's a funny story too. I originally thought it was Newberry, which is Limestone's rival, right? Yeah. So I'm looking Newberry up. Newberry has a very, very long laundry list of accolades from when my coaches went there. And I'm like, this is awesome. They're like a D2 powerhouse. And then I figure out it's Limestone. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, it's still South Carolina. We'll figure it out. And I go down there and I fall in love. It was like that. that plate, like that hominess that we were talking about, Apex, and then me coming back into the room, it was like it felt right between the coaches. I saw the relationship with the coaches have with the team that I wasn't finding at Buffalo, and like that's what I was looking for, like the relationship that we have with our Apex coaches.
Yeah.
It was there, and I figured, okay, this is an environment that I can suit to. So I went down there. When I went on my visit, I actually went with Jesse Ryder, who we grew up wrestling with from town over. We decided to go down there together because we were roommates down there, and we started wrestling down there. So I shipped out 2016, I believe. So I went to Buffalo, did the summer semester, did a fall semester, came home, did my spring semester at Bergen Community part-time, and then transferred out to Limestone. And from there, it just went. And I don't know if it was from the adversity that struck that brought me home. There was a different chip on my shoulder, and we've talked about it before, trials and tribulations kind of catapult people sometimes. I think that kind of experience is what I needed to realize, like, listen, you're doing things right, but there's another gear that you're missing. And that's when I started kind of biting down on my mouthpiece and asking myself, what is setting me like back? What am I doing here? Because I'm doing everything right. I don't party. I eat clean. I train hard. I train multiple times a day, but I'm still getting edged out. And it's just a mentality thing. And I think that mentality of just putting yourself through the ringer to achieve your goals, I really embraced. And I found that at Limestone, where I had my coaches pushing me every single day. I didn't have someone yelling at me, but they're like, listen, dog, you got more in you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got more in you. And, having that on your shoulder every single day, telling me you're going to be a national champion. You're going to be. It's not like a if it happens, it's a when it happens, and having that kind of stuff, like when I was training back with Damien, when it was kind of be like, listen, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. That allows you to excel. So I found myself at Limestone, and the rest was history, man. I mean, I started at 141. I had some decent success at D2 in the beginning years. Would always like scrape that top 12 ranking guys, like edging out matches with them. Like I would beat a guy like by 1 point who was ranked in the country, and then get beat by a guy who's ranked, you know what I mean? Like the flip flop, the inconsistencies that you see with guys who are trying to climb the ranks. Then the injuries started setting in, which again, that's another thing I have to attribute to the school is, during those times when you see athletes in environments that they're not close with their coaches, they break when those times happen, because it's kind of like a next guy up kind of thing where they're not worried about the guy who's injured anymore. Let's build up the guy who's here. They're building both guys. Hey, Rose, you're in the athletic training room, but you're coming into practice and you're watching, and you're getting better at least coaching. Right. And I was able to still jump levels. And then, as the years went on, I found myself climbing the ranks. And by my third year, I was at the NCAA tournament. And that was like, I remember stepping on those soft mats that NCAA has. When you get down to NCAA tournament, they get these brand new mats, and they're like super spongy. It reminds me of the Heights room.
Okay.
I stepped on, I was like, this is it, dude. And D2 isn't as big of an arena as D1, but it was like, I remember sitting there and like soaking it in, being like, all this time I never thought that I was supposed to be here. I mean, like 5 years old, like, you're not meant for this. You're not meant for this. And I was there, and I was like, I'm here. Like, I'm here, and it's gonna happen. And it was a surreal experience to sit there and like look around. And I had my dad and my mom in the stands and family and my coaches, and compete. And I didn't place that year, but I watch, and like the guys who were edging me out by a point or two, watching them win national titles, place top 3, and I'm like, there's nothing separating me from them. It's just mentality. And that year it was like I got surgery, came back, kept going, pulled my hamstring, kept going, still found myself there. And that's half not wrestling, half not even training half the season,
Yeah.
So I felt like that catapulted me into my senior year, where I was like, this is it. And I started majoring a lot of guys. Like preseason came around, and I was messing dudes up. Got hurt again. It started dislocating my knee, and I was ranked like 5th in the country. and I just couldn't. I tried to tape myself, like duct tape and staple myself back onto the mat, and it just was not happening. My body's like, dude, you're checked out. But after that, I came home and was done with wrestling. But I still had that when you click into that like intenseness where we're higher level athletes or higher level achievers, like are constantly just going, trying to push themselves to their break. It's hard to just step away from that, right? And that's where Apex came in again. So Damien and Tina brought me in, and I started coaching there, and I found a way to funnel it into the next generation, and it really helped. It was like, I remember I had a phone call with Damien after like my first time coaching at States, and he was like, dude, you might have not had your success as an athlete, but you got it with coaching. You have that coaching to you. I don't know, like whatever it was, it happened and it clicks, and I love it. It's my passion now.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because everything that went right always felt like home. Limestone felt like home. Apex felt like home. Heights felt like home because it was home. And it was, you're a product of your environment and the people around you. So even like when I was in college, we would talk all the time. I was talking to your dad. You're a product of your environment is the basis. Yeah.
And you went in perpetual circles.
Yeah.
Around each thing.
Yeah.
Start off at Apex, now you're back out at Apex.
Yeah.
You resonated with a certain environment and clicked with a certain way with specific people on your team that made you grow. All of a sudden you found that with Limestone. You're just constantly going in full circle.
Yeah.
And on top of it, I tell this to a couple of people, but it's like the true definition of the word passion is what you're willing to suffer for. All right. And you found wrestling was your passion.
Yeah.
All right. Passion's a washy word. A lot of people use like, oh, find your passion and stick with it, follow it. That's bullshit. All right. Passion, when it's good advice, but it's contorted, convoluted advice.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. What it really means is like commit to what you're willing to suffer for. All right. And you committed to the sport of wrestling. And you had this thing, you had this attitude adjustment that I have to finish what I started. And you fully divulged yourself into that outlook. Things may have not panned out your way. All right. But you overcame crazy obstacles.
And it's funny because even now, like my mentality about wrestling is if I'm like, I've been able to shift my mind away from the competition mindset. But even now, like when you find yourself like getting back into it, I don't think about it as like I didn't achieve it. I ran out of time. That's like even to this day, I'm like I could still win a national title. I just ran out of time. It's still like it's something that's still on the table, but I think that's just because it was what was constantly fed into my mind. Definitely. That positive reinforcement with correct adjustments. It was just go.
Yeah, but then you find that with you're becoming a national champ coach.
Yeah.
All right. You got killers that you're working with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you found that fulfillment with a different direction, but with the same outlet.
Yeah.
It's still wrestling. It's still what your primary focus has been. It's still what you're suffering for, or what you're willing to suffer for. But all of a sudden, it's a different outlook on it.
Yeah.
All right. You're detracting yourself. You're digging. Like I said, you dig yourself in a really, really steep hole when you're on that one speed mentality as a competitor. And it's hard to take a step back. Now with coaching, it's constantly about digging the hole and then stepping back out.
Yeah.
Or then building a diagonal path up so you can look at all the work that you've done downward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's awesome to connect with kids now because there's so many times where the stuff that I'm saying to them, I wish I could go back and like punch my old self in the face, be like, dude, you should. I don't know where this is coming from, but I wish I could have listened to myself like back in the day because things would have went a lot better.
Well, I feel like that's like the big theme with coaches too. Like they reflect back on their own career, and they understand the little like critiquing mistakes that they've had, whether they were a national champ or not, or whether they didn't achieve scratch with their career. They realize the mistakes that they made, and they try to reflect that back on the kids on how they can improve. And everyone says like the typical cliche things like gotta work hard. It's all about effort. It's all about the love of the sport and all that nonsense. But the reason why they're saying that is because they didn't find that fulfillment while they were competing. Yeah. They're reflecting back on it and you're like, you need to work harder, right? Because that's going to actually lead you somewhere. Well, when you're like a 5-year-old little squirt, you're like, I'm tired.
Just trying to find the breaks.
So like right now you made that, you've been through constant transitions. And the one thing I love that you talked about is your attitude adjustment, but reinforcing the attitude with the love of a coach. Okay. your coaches helped establish that attitude for yourself.
It was a cornerstone.
Yeah, they instilled your confidence in you by telling you you're going to be a champ.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like them second guessing that alternative. All right, it wasn't them throwing, like you said, like you had 2 guys training for that spot the entire time. It wasn't them treating it like a business deal or
Mm-hmm.
being sharks and be like, all right, this dude's hurt, fuck him, he's out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys, what do they do in the NFL? If a quarterback gets hurt, the other guy's on the sideline,
Mm-hmm.
and they're coaching him throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
Especially with veteran players.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like at Limestone, the coaches were able to harness that environment to make sure there was 2 guys ready at all time.
I think because of that, I think that's why I understood the coaching aspect, because I had to watch so much and critique my teammates. I have like guys in my weight class. One of my buddies, Devin DiCarlo, I lived with him. I remember we'd have like drill sessions where I was like just coming back, and I was like critiquing his hand placement. I'm like, I remember the one time I was like, am I coaching? Like, am I an athlete still, or am I coaching? It brings your mind outside of that competitive bubble and allows you to see it from a different lens. It's awesome.
Yeah. So we went through all those transitions. You finished up strong with your career at Limestone.
Mm-hmm.
You come back, you get into the finance realm.
Yeah.
And you automatically segue into your passion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What you truly love, which is the sport of wrestling and coaching. Mm-hmm. What are the big pillars that you've picked up on through your career and through your experience that you really try to harp on with your own athletes as a coach?
Just a couple things. I think bettering yourself, not just physically, so it's mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. Those are kind of like the big 4. Like now it's becoming more popular, but an athlete is more, it's like a double-edged sword. It's not just being the biggest brawn out there. You got to be a good mind too. And that goes academically and like mindset. So I remember when I was in college, it was like, you're a student athlete, student in all caps athlete. If you can't get good grades, you're not going to wrestle. You lost your job.
Yeah. Right.
And that kind of goes into the work world now too, where it's like, if I'm not doing a good job, I'm going to lose my job. If I'm not performing, I'm not going to make money anymore. Yeah, I gotta always be the best version of myself and chasing the best version of myself in order to excel. So constantly like sharpening the sword in all those aspects, right? I mean, you were with me today at Apex, and I had just a mental session with one of the guys where we just reflected, we talked. What was your preparation? What were you telling yourself? Those are the things that are becoming more popular, but need to be focused on when you have a guy who's got the technique, who's got the hard work, but they're lacking the self-confidence, or they're lacking, the mental lapses. They're having mental lapses in matches where they lose focus and they get taken down. It's building that up in someone, and it's beautiful to watch when you watch a kid go from unconfident but pretty talented to really confident and talented, and they're achieving their goals. I would say it's even sweeter than achieving stuff for yourself, because trophies go up on a wall and collect dust, but your trophy as a coach is the athlete. After they get done competing and they become a great human, that's the icing on the cake. We have great guys who trained us. I'm sure they look at us and they're like, I'm really proud that I was able to have my hands on those guys.
Definitely.
At least that might be cocky of me to say, but I'd like to think about it that way. I like to make everyone proud. Yeah. Just like you do. So it's taking it from the aspect of, I'm not just building an athlete, I'm trying to build a great human and the best version of himself. That kind of creates a good relationship.
Yeah, and the principles of sport always translate into how they're going to excel in any area of their life.
Absolutely.
Like if you believe in, let's say, baseline generic words like hard work and dedication and perseverance and resilience, all right, and that's in the practice room, and that's in competition and how you perform, that's going to relate into how you show up in the classroom.
Yeah.
All right, if you harp on those principles, especially if it's reinforced by the environment. And then all of a sudden, when they take that level to college, that's going to be by default functioning through their college experience. And then post-college, all of a sudden, they've hunkered down on the habits of resilience and hard work and determination, perseverance. And it translates into their professional life. And it all comes out with the environment they were raised in.
Yeah.
You see that with the coaches, and all of a sudden you're stepping into that realm in the realm of development. That's pretty much what it is right now. Working at a club like Apex, or even just any wrestling club, their development program for people down the line.
Absolutely.
Which is the most beautiful part, especially with the sport of wrestling. Any sport has a lot of principle, but I feel like wrestling really harps on life principles.
I feel like it throws so much more adversity. There's no other high school sport that is a sanctioned sport by the state that makes you make weight.
Yeah.
You're asking a high school 15-year-old kid to cut 10 pounds, sometimes if they're super ambitious, 20 pounds, get good grades, find a way to be social, find a way to be confident, and compete and perform at your best version of yourself. And also, by the way, you have to keep getting better because other guys in the state are getting better as well. Yeah. That's a whole lot for a 15-year-old to wrap their head around.
Yeah.
So it's a different animal. It's something that not many people get to experience, and more need it.
And just based off the resources alone, like these days, you see the huge performance gap in the evolution of the sport.
Absolutely.
Like when we were competing, we didn't have all the information, like even though it was only I just finished up this previous year, but when we were like little, we were relying upon our parents and like our immediate coaching network to tell us what the diet was and all that stuff is. Nutritions are all over the place now. Dietitians, strength conditioning coaches, all that stuff. It's been around, but it's more prevalent in that athletic setting. Like kids have the extensive resources to manage every little aspect to elevate their performance, which is huge. Like we talked about today, what are the 6 pillars of performance, right? It's like the technical aspect and tactical aspect. Yeah. Tactical is your response to the technique or while you're actually applying it. You got the mental. All right. You have the physical, which is like the training and the performance, putting all that effort out there. And then on top of it, you have your lifestyle and the brand. All right. Your lifestyle and brand, the lifestyle is how you're functioning outside of the sport. What are you doing? Your sleep, nutrition, your diet, all that fun stuff. Are you weight training? Are you not? And then on top of it, the brand is how you represent yourself through the values and convictions. All right. And that's all derived around your environment. And right now, in this day and age, there's countless amount of resources. Yeah. Even with a shitty tool like social media, man. Like if you decide to sit down on that social media machine and just suck in bullshit, like you're not going to get much out of it. But if you go on Instagram and follow all wrestling accounts, like I talk with some little kids, all they have is like wrestling accounts on their Instagram and memes. But those wrestling accounts are getting the exposure really quick. And they're seeing these high level guys like Deacon, Taylor, and Burroughs and all these studs
spewing great points.
Yeah, spewing great points, and then also seeing them perform the moves. Yeah, and that helps like that natural process of development to pick up the technique. Yeah, which is sick, man. So, let's take it on a simple step, because technical tactical is kind of in the practice setting. But what do you really want to harp on your kids to elevate themselves lifestyle wise, and how do you want them to represent themselves as an entity too? Like what are the core convictions and values you want them to exude, and then on top of it, the way they want to live their lives.
So that's the one thing, because everyone's different.
Definitely.
Right? You can't sit there and tell someone, like Penn State, like you can see, like most of they all praise God. I can't go in and tell a 5-year-old to go to church. If the family's Muslim, like it is what it is, and nothing's wrong with that. But I can't tell him to be a religion. Yeah. However, there's principles of being a great person. And usually people who find higher purpose and just anything are able to use those guidelines to become a great person. So because there's that unity of characteristics of a great person, that's what I find, like what are those synergies, right? Confidence, being humble, right? Always asking like questions to people and to understand what one person's thinking so that you can reflect and take something from someone else and put it into your own, right? Like taking a step back and understanding that you're a small pea in the world and you have a lot of work to do, but it's awesome to be here. Like the gratefulness, it's a laundry list of things, and it's really hard to summarize, but chasing greatness is the biggest, and greatness all around in all those pillars, right? Lifestyle. If you're boozing up, smoking cigarettes, you're not going to get the best version of yourself, right? If you're clean diet, training, getting good grades, hanging around the good people, telling yourself the positive and good things, and constantly trying to improve yourself, That's a really hard formula to break, not get successful with.
Yeah. And it's also an easy formula to critique if there's anything weird at play,
Yeah.
performance-wise.
Yeah.
So how are you helping these kids? Like you said, you went through the project today, and I was there with you at practice. How do you break out those micro improvements for the kids that are actually living through a great lifestyle, great convictions?
Yeah.
Like what are the common threads that you're seeing with these kids, and how are you helping them elevate their performance?
So I try to ask questions, and I base it around a model that one of my coaches in college, Coach Reed, gave me, and it was like, write down 3 things that you did well, 1 thing you can improve, and how are you going to improve it. But I ask them in a way where it doesn't have to just be about wrestling. It's like, what were you thinking? Did you wake up and eat cereal? you know what I mean? Like I'm pinpointing it to every aspect, so they're not just like, well, I took a single egg and I finished it. That was really good. It's like, no. Did you yell at your parents in the morning?
Yeah.
No? Okay, good. That's a good thing that you did. Did you get an A on your test? Yeah. Okay. These are all good things. Realize that, holy crap, I'm a badass dude or a badass gal, and understand that it's in all these different aspects of life. And that builds confidence in a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A kid who's trying to sit there and make them a national champ, but they go home and they color in books. You know?
Yeah.
So it's making them understand that you can achieve greatness in all of their life, in all aspects of their life.
100%. And you like even simple things, like you said, you allow them to realize the little improvements that are good for them to become great.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the process of chasing greatness,
Mm-hmm.
especially at the developmental age.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're constantly harping on those little critiques in order for them to flower, blossom into something excellent.
Yeah.
And transferring that over into this next generation of wrestling, obviously you got these young guys in this room, and you're going to constantly see the evolution of these kids developing, maturing, and all that stuff. Like they're going to be starting to turn into grown men.
Yeah.
And your role is to be a mentor to turn boys and gals into adults.
Absolutely.
And mature individuals. So as a mature athlete, all right, yourself, like you coming up with this maturity and realizing all these things later on in your career, whether it was in competition or now, what's been the primary focus for you pushing forward to make sure that the club you're working at or anything outside of the room is really getting elevated?
I take it from the perspective of, I wish someone did this for me earlier, right? So I try to put it in, like, if I was that 6-year-old kid, first day lacing up shoes coming into the room, right? If a coach just gave me like a scratch in the head, but like, no, like if I can develop a relationship with them, so they like right now, I have kids, they see me and they give me hugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like oh, hey coach, high five. It's a relationship where I'm friends with the parents, friends with the family, you know, and I have someone, I'm someone where I'm looking there, I'm like, I can see my young self who just wants to be there and have fun, and having, okay, what did I need to be told at that time? You know, and it takes a lot of reflection. Like when I come home and I think about, okay, but did I tell little Johnny the right thing today? Did I yell at him? No, I didn't. I try not to yell at any little kids, but you know, like giving them that proper environment where, you know, positive reinforcement, keeping them on track, not getting mad at a little kid for losing focus, you know, really trying to see my younger self in the guys, so I can try to pinpoint where they need to excel in all those aspects.
Yeah. And it boosts the intrinsic motivation too. It's not just about the performance at the end of the day. It's about the involvement, the desire to be good at something, which is beautiful. So with all this realization and the application to the athletes you're working on, how do you reflect it back on yourself? And how do you live through those principles so you could be the example for the kids?
Yeah. So I do a lot of like reflection especially after like a tournament. And I go back and I think about, I always send one of the parents, if I'm there like coaching like 3 kids at like a state qualifier or something, I always text the parents after.
Okay.
And I'll say like, listen, I'm really proud of Johnny for overcoming, like he had a really hard match today, wiped his tears away and was able to get back into it and win a match after that. That's awesome. That shows progression. Talking to a parent of a 6-year-old like that, it's like, holy shit, like this coach really cares.
Yeah.
Because I do. You know, like I want to take the hour of my night before I go to sleep and have to go to work in the morning and think about how could I give this little kid the best version of myself and his family the best version of myself, so that they know that I'm here for them. Right. And breaking it down for how am I supporting them in the corner? what am I telling them? Am I making sure that like, hey, you drink fluids today? You know, like getting them to laugh at tournaments, like little things. So it's all enjoyable for them.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And like the one, like you just reaching out, which is huge in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I always think about my dad whenever
Mm-hmm.
whenever I talk on that, like touch on that topic, because sometimes, especially when you're like a little kid, and even in a business sense, when you're trying to get clients or anything like this, people always are scared to call,
Yeah.
right? Or scared to reach out. It's a very common thread with people. But think about your parents, all right? You may not pick up the phone every time
Mm-hmm.
they call, all right? You're always going to be there for them, but they're going to call you no matter what because they care.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And it expresses the care that you have for the kid when you constantly reach out, whether they pick up or not. It's ingrained either consciously or subconsciously in their head that this dude means business and this dude wants me to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And seeing that effort getting poured into that kid, they want to level up. They want to step up their standard to that. So reflecting it back on you, you're a business consultant in the financial sector, maintaining or living through this example with confidence and being humble and representing and elevating the development of like young boys and girls to mature and all that stuff. How are you rolling that over into being the best business consultant possible?
So the one thing is, like, we go back to the beginning where I was talking about when I was a little kid, like I thought people were above you because they're better at the sport.
Yeah.
You know, right now, like I'll talk to CFOs and it's intimidating. You have someone who's possibly like late 30s, 40s, making multi-millions of dollars, like in every aspect on their resume. Yes, they are better than me. However, they're a human. So, and I'm still early in my career. So am I jumping into the pool and making a massive splash? No. But if I can create a relationship and be personable, make them laugh, you know, help them do work. If they send me something, I can get it back to them as timely as possible and do it in the best of my capabilities. You know, that's a really easy way to create your brand where, you know, Matt Rose is trustworthy or Sean O'Malley's trustworthy. He cares about talking. He's not just going to jump on a call and go on mute, you know, like developing relationships, and really caring about what you put forth. You know, it's like when you take notes, the people who are doing really well in school, they could take really detailed notes or they could take really shitty notes. If you take really shitty notes and you go to the test, you're going to fail. If you take really good notes and you paid attention, you're going to probably do well. If I'm handing forth work that I don't really care about, it's like chicken scratch, and I, you know, send it across and it's horrible, they're not going to want to utilize me anymore. But if I'm caring about it and I'm caring about, okay, my name's on this, I'm going to give it to them and they're going to utilize this to better their business processes, they're going to want to keep in touch. They're going to want to continue to utilize me. And so I kind of try to take those principles where everyone's a person, everyone's going to have a story, everybody wants a relationship, you know, so kind of encompassing that in the business realm, I think has helped me come from a not so confident guy to a guy, like a not so confident kid who wasn't really achieving that much, to a guy who is just like scraping away at the ranks.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to think that I'm on a forward progress. So that concept has kind of helped.
Yeah. And it's not like you're a robot either.
No.
Some people want to just streamline everything and be super structured, do the bare minimum. And they don't really elevate themselves to anything elite. All right. And their performance is kind of mediocre at best. They're good. We'll put it that way. But by you inserting your personality from experience and seeing those transitions in your life and then being original and genuine with your expression of it, it really attracts the people that are important in your life and garners those new relationships, whether it's at Apex working as a coach or at your consulting company.
Yeah.
All right. It's bringing those people in because they see you're a good fucking person. All right. Like you're not a good person. You're a great person.
Yeah.
Or you put yourself out there. You're willing to go the extra mile in order to make sure people are accountable. You're accountable and you're doing the best work possible. Like, I love this one quote my dad always used to tell me. He's like, you're only as good as your last project. Right. And your projects are on a continuous basis, both with your athletes and with your clients as a consultant. So how are you ensuring that you are as good as your last project, that your best effort is always out there?
Well, it comes from like asking questions. What can I do better?
Okay.
How can I help you more? Is there something I could do that I haven't done before? Asking those questions. And I'm still early on in my career, so I'm not asking that to the client, but I'm asking my managers that, hey, constantly, at least once a month, I'm saying, hey, I know it's like not a formal business review right now, but is there anything I can do better? How can I help you more? How can I make the team's life a lot easier? Mm-hmm. Asking those questions and constantly trying to be an asset rather than a liability has helped tremendously. And it allows for that hominess in a team. Like my team now that I'm working with, it feels like home again. I don't mind waking up on Monday at 6. I had times where I had 7 a.m. meetings where I had to jump on calls with people in different time zones. I didn't mind doing that because my team is really good at working with each other. They're really good at positive communication. They're really good at making sure that I'm trying to be the best version of myself, just like I'm trying to help them be the best versions of themselves. So it all correlates, and it goes back to that full circle stuff where things feel like home. It's that kind of environment that allows you to continue to progress. So it's like asking those questions of how can I do better? How can I help you? What can I do to make sure that I'm meeting my milestones? Things like that. Because as you progress in a career, your task objectives change, right? As I said, I'm in the beginning, so now I'm kind of like cranking out work and handing it up to people, but hopefully someday I'm going to be the person who's talking to the CFOs, right? So the objective list changes a little bit. Now I'm creating business plans and giving it to that person rather than, filling out Excel spreadsheets and trying to understand the process.
Yeah. And it cultivates the value of respect and trust, right? They can rely on you because you're there and you're doing the work and you're doing a great job with it too. So
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, you like to consider it.
Yeah.
They tell you, which is good. So we talked about all this excellent stuff that you're working on in your life.
Yeah.
All right. You're working with these kids, coaching. You work at this business consulting firm. You're starting a family. You just got engaged. You have this wedding on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is the highest projection of Matt Rose going into the future? Like, who is this entity of Matt Rose that's higher than the person you are right now?
So I think it chops down to like constant progress, right? So it's boiled down to the point of when you're constantly chasing a better version of yourself, it's there's no end game, right? So, as I catapult from when you're in college, you think you're ready for the business world and you get there and you realize it's not the same environment that you were used to. So, you go from a college athletic environment where you're super intense all the time. And then, whether you work in an office or you work doing labor, right? You can't be an intense guy the whole time. You can't be all flexed out and staring people down for 9 hours in a day. It's just not possible. And you don't have that much adrenaline. You don't have that much focus. Brain's not meant to do that. So, as you realize that there has to be an adjustment for that, you realize that there's more efficient ways to live that life. So, going from and transitioning from a college athlete to someone working in my realm right now, there's adjustments that need to be made. Furthermore, working into a family now, I'm engaged. You're in my wedding. Your brother's in my wedding. A bunch of our friends are in my wedding. My focus shift has gone from, okay, how am I going to be an elite consultant? I'm still focused on doing that, but now my biggest focus is how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to be the best version of myself for my wife? How am I going to be the best version of myself for my kids? Because when I was in college, my coaches would constantly kind of check us where if we were bringing a bad attitude in from classes or whatever happened during the day, we're bringing it into the wrestling room. Like, yeah, keep that shit out the door. Because what are you going to do when you have a kid and you have a wife? You're going to have a bad day at work and bring that home and put it on your kids, ruin their day, ruin your wife's day, all because you're pissed off with your fucking manager. I'm sure as shit not going to be that guy. You can't be. That's not what any great man is going to do. A great man doesn't bring home their problems. Leave their problems at the door. It's like when you're a kid, and they tell you to leave your ego at the door when you walk into a wrestling room. I'm going to leave my problems at the door, and I'm coming in with a smile on my face, even if I'm faking it. Because I'm not going to ruin my child's day because I'm having one. So I think the highest version of myself is constantly keeping that humility and putting my ego to the side and realizing that other people around me matter more than myself, especially my family, especially my wife, especially my kids, especially my loved ones, right? The only reason why I know you live this way too. The only reason why we want to achieve is to make the people around us proud and provide for them. So I think that's kind of encompasses where the highest level of myself will be, constantly trying to chase after a better version of myself, most likely will transition into everyone around me being able to have an environment that they're able to find the best version of themselves. I can't expect Victoria to be the best version of herself if I'm not giving her that. Right?
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So projecting outward like that, how do you expect, or how are you planning on building into that progression of Matt Rose, this bad motherfucker in the future?
Mm-hmm.
All right, the family man, the elite coach, creating national champions, the top of the line business consultant, making $1 million deals,
Hopefully,
and problem solving like a maniac. All right, because when it comes down to it, we all pray for the rain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but what comes with rain? The mud.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the mud is just that shitstorm of nonsense that slaps you in the face. It's the reality of the circumstance. All right, there's going to be great things that come your way, but there's also going to be loss.
Yeah.
There's going to be failure. There's going to be triumph, but there's also going to be tribulation. All right, there's going to have those setbacks at play. The one thing I absolutely love that we've talked about before prior was you have this concept of the 24-hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
You mind explaining that?
Yeah. So when I was in college, my coaches they said we have to live by this 24-hour rule. Like you have 24 hours to get out of your feelings. You have 24 hours to feel shitty, and once that 24-hour hits, you're over it. We're on to the next thing. We're moving on to bigger and better things. How are we going to progress forward? And that rule started as something that was just for a loss in wrestling or a bad practice in wrestling, and now it's something that I've implemented into real life situations. I wish I had that principle ingrained in my mind when Bobby died, but obviously, listen, things happen in certain ways because it's supposed to. But when Tony died a couple of years later, my other brother Tony died. Not that I only took 24 hours to mourn him, but I had to take a step back and realize that other people are mourning him too. My parents are hurt, family's hurt. If I'm sitting there and just grieving all the time and in this horrible state of mind, how am I helping my family? How am I helping my dad get through his day? How am I helping my mom get through her day? So I did a much better job with that time around with not bringing my problems to everyone around me. Giving myself that, it was a little bit longer than 24 hours in this circumstance, but, trying to get over as fast as possible, realizing and owning the feelings that I have in that short period of time and trying to figure out how can I move forward, right? What am I doing to progress forward? How can I take positives from this so that I can instill them into the people around me, or at least attempt to? If I can make my mom or dad crack a smile after something horrible like that, that's what matters, right? The selflessness of that, and then even moving forward to, when me and Victoria get in a fight, am I going to stay pissed off at my wife for a week because she called me an asshole because I probably was being one? No, I can't. And it's like that. You can't do that. I'm going to get over it, get out of my feels, and tell my wife that I love her, because that's what you're supposed to do as a man who's a provider. You can't sit there and dwell and be selfish. That's a selfish state of mind for someone to be there and just think, my life sucks. This is horrible. I shouldn't be here. Why is life like this? All that stuff. That's selfish. You're thinking me. When in those times, when everyone cares, everyone who's around you that cares about you, you should be focused on how can I make their situation better. And little steps like that help you get out of those valleys. So that 24-hour rule is really something that I tried to bring into all aspects of life. And it's funny how something so simple that you use to get over a wrestling match just snowballed positively into something that I can use as a methodology to get over other things in life and really serious things in life. So it goes back to some of the things we were talking about where like wrestling is a sport that teaches you these principles that are just, you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, and you have this lovely life motto. You want to state it?
Yeah. So in college, I came up with this idea of this quote is a reaction to adversity defines man. And it really, I think I kind of own that statement because I try to find and embrace, not, I don't try to find it, but I embrace my adversity. I embrace my struggle. And that's something that I really want to try to instill to my children. And what I try to explain to the kids that I coach is, in that melting zone of adversity where you're just down in the dumps, something hits, having a great day, getting a car wreck, someone blows out your mirror or something, you just sit there and be pissed off about it all day, or are you going to get to your destination and continue with your progress? So overcoming adversity and overcoming struggle is a lot more achieving than sitting in it and festering and letting it consume you. When you get over to the other side and you realize all the, you look back and you're thinking about all the obstacles and adversity you came over, it's uplifting. It builds your confidence, and it makes your coping mechanisms for the next time it comes around that much better. So reaction to adversity is something I try to live by, and I'm going to try to instill into all the younger people that I'm able to have my hands with.
Yeah. And you see with elite athletes across all spectrums, with UFC guys like Charles Oliveira and Alex Pereira, they were in the favelas of Brazil and had a very humble beginning, but were able to push past those boundaries and embrace that dark side of their upbringing, of their environment. That tribulation, whatever setback they had when they were in their youth, just their circumstance in general, and projected outward. All right. I think having a positive outlook is a great thing. And everyone, the common thread with psychology and all this crazy stuff nowadays and all these sciences is having a great outlook, having a super positive outlook, being happy. But a very valuable aspect of your identity is that dark side.
Realizing it.
Yeah. Realizing it, owning it, embracing it, because that's internal to you.
It's defining.
Yes.
It's defining. Yeah. As much as your achievements can define you, your darkest demons define you, because when push comes to shove, that's what's going to come out. It's
your fuel.
Yeah.
All right. Like when shit hits the fan, or when it's time for you to show up, you're not just thinking about the happy-go-lucky moments. You're thinking about that the suffering you went through. All right, in the moment leading up to that.
Absolutely.
All right. Like prime example with the sport of wrestling, you go through suffering. It's self-inflicted suffering every single day. All right, no one wants to do a 2.5 hour
in a sweaty, hot wrestling room.
100-degree wrestling room, beating the shit out of each other with another 140 or 200-pound grown man just getting clubbed to hell. No normal person wants to do that, but that's a sense of suffering, and that's also passion. That's what you're willing to suffer.
Mike Tyson says it really well. He goes, "You learn to love the things that you hate doing." Or something to the effect of that. That's what wrestling teaches you. It teaches you to love something that you hate doing. That's something special.
Yeah.
That's something that not many humans get to do. And, wrestling, especially at the collegiate level and past that, it really teaches you to do that.
Yeah. I used to say when I was competing, like, I'm grateful for the pain that I receive. All right. Because I could dish it 10 times more.
Yeah.
I need to feel something.
That's a gangster statement.
I need to feel something in order to dish it. All right. And that's suffering in the practice room. That's suffering from, I was usually the guy to club somebody first, but that response, me eliciting a response through a club or a post or something like that, and being able to feel their reaction, that's what really pushed me forward. That was that little oomph, that snap.
Yeah.
And that carries that's the fuel for a lot of people, which is beautiful. So now we have this highest projection. You have this highest projection, Matt Rose, and you're working on it tirelessly. It's an every second ordeal. Even in conversations like this, these are defining moments for both of us to elevate us to our higher purpose.
Absolutely.
When do you see yourself achieving this point? It's not a peak point for Matt Rose. All right.
Yeah.
It's an eternal point for Matt Rose, because how I view it is you have your identity, and your identity is constantly compounding day over day. And your character is the highest projection of self. It's the eternal being. It's you living through your spirit instead of your flesh. Right? In the Bible, they talk about living through the spirit instead of the flesh. So it's you living through that spirit and you embodying that spirit, the highest projection of you. When do you see yourself fully integrating yourself into that highest form?
I think that's a difficult question to answer, just because it's not simple.
100%.
The road of progress doesn't have an endpoint, right? And if someone says that there's an endpoint, it's BS. They're truly not trying to constantly elevate themselves. And I'm not saying that from like a pedestal or standing on a soapbox saying like I've changed the best version of myself every single day, I'm better than you. No, it's true. If you're constantly trying to progress, there's always something you can progress at. So for me to say that I'll know that I made it when I hit this point. I could be a millionaire, but money doesn't make happiness. It can buy you nice things, but it can't make you happy. You know, I could be a great father, but not provide. So there's all these different aspects that there's always going to be something that I can be better at. So I think it's less of when and more of like a realization where things kind of just fall into place where I'm 60 years old and I'm watching my sons or my daughter chasing greatness. I'm watching the little kids that I help build up right now at Apex chasing greatness, whether it's in wrestling or whatever other aspects in life. They're doing great things. That to me would be the point where I could sit back and be like, you know what? I really impacted people positively. That's something more meaningful to me that any trophy, any medal I could put on my dad's like metal wall. That means more. And I think that kind of goes to, in the Bible, it's like what it kind of goes down to. So you're always trying to chase a better version of yourself for God, because that's what he wanted you to do.
Yeah. So Brian Bino, Brian Bino, because Apex too. But me and Brian used to go on like power walks all the time in college. And he turned me on to this one author, Herman Hesse. There's this book by Herman Hesse. It's the first book I picked up from him, actually, called Damien. All right. And in the preface of the book, freaking awesome. It's like one of the most pack-a-punch lines ever. He talks about how a man is the journey of a man's life is never complete. A man is never complete at the end of his existence. All right. But his pursuit defines his whole. All right. We're all born through the same doorway, our mama's hoo-ha. All right. Every single person, no matter who you are, you come through the same door. You come through the same way into this existence. All right. But your pursuit to that whole, that pursuit to completeness, you'll never be complete. It's a guaranteed. You're never going to do all the things you want to do. You're never going to be able to make all the decisions and spend all the time the way you want it. All right. But at the end, when you're on your deathbed, and we both laughed about this earlier, but although it's a controversial topic, that Andrew Tate story about his grandmother. All right. He talks about what happens with like modern day masculinity and femininity, but he talks about the value or the realization he had with his grandmother. All right. She dedicated her whole life to create life.
90 years old, filled a room full of people that she created.
And nurture family, nurture a community of people that supported and came from her. All right. And although the masculine and feminine purpose is a little bit different, our roles are here as kind of like as a provider. All right. And the biggest thing is
that's what we chose. That's what we chose to own.
Yeah. That's what we choose to own. But we're also providing examples because of the character we're living through. Because the highest projection of Matt Rose, the highest projection of Sean O'Malley. All right. It may not be there. May not be the multi-billion badass motherfuckers, but we hold ourselves with a genuine character that's going to take over the world and change people's lives right now in the moment. And we're living through that conviction right now.
Yeah.
So segueing it over to the incompleteness of life. All right. What are you willing to give up? All right. This is a tough question, but because I was sitting down reflecting on this the other day, what are you willing to give up to make sure you achieve that highest form of Matt Rose?
So it's funny, yes, I would think about this a lot. I remember I had a conversation we used to do in college. We used to do Thank God It's Monday. We'd all meet at the wrestling room at 7 a.m. and our coach would give us a booklet. We'd have our goal books and we'd watch a TED Talk or something. And that came up, that question came up. It was like, what are you willing to give up for this? And for a whole year, I convinced myself, like, I'm willing to give my last breath for this. And like, not just saying that to say it, believing it, to like, I will give my last breath to ensure that I did everything I did today. Everything I did in my hardest effort and in full purpose and potential for me to achieve my goals. And that's something that I went through. It carried with me past college, where now it's like, I mean, as soon as Victoria came into my life and I decided that she was the one for me, I was like, I'd give my last breath for that woman. I'd give my last breath for my future kids. They're not even here yet. We're not even a thought yet. I'd give my last breath. I'd give my last breath for my loved ones, my family. So that's what it means to me. And it might be intense for a lot of people who are listening to this, but that's what it is. I mean, the selflessness is what it is. I'd give anything. anything. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. To achieve what I want to achieve, that's what I'm willing to give.
And the highest currency on the face of the earth is purpose-driven action, right? Especially purpose-driven action with people, all right? A family, a community, your support system. That's the highest currency. One thing that has remained the same since the beginning of time is the shit that comes out of this mouth.
Yeah.
All right. Talk has always been cheap. The value of talk has never changed. It's always been cheaper than a fucking penny. But the actions associated with what comes out of here outweighs anything.
And you could see it where there's, I'm not saying I'm the only person who's like that. There's plenty of people who live their life like that. But you could see it. I hope that people could see it through my actions where, when I'm coaching kids, they could see that I'd give anything to make sure that they're in the best situation. Yeah. Hope my Victoria knows that I would jump in front of a train. Right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Bruno Mars.
Oh yeah.
No, but seriously, I hope that people who know me and love me, they could see that that's how I live, and it's a truth. It's not just something that I say.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've said to many people.
No. Yeah, and you mean it when you say it.
Absolutely.
Like I said, words are cheap, and you can't really keep someone's word unless they're backing it up with an action of high value. So to wrap this thing up, you want to kind of uncover some bits of advice for this next generation of, hey, maybe your kids and maybe some of the guys you're working with, maybe just some of your boys or people who are watching, some advice that helps them define that winning category. All right. Like, what makes you a winner, and what's that advice that you would give to them to become a winner?
Definitely reaction to adversity defines men. Embracing adversity and struggle. And I think asking yourself tough questions that you don't want to answer to other people. That's a cold statement. You could ask me a question on camera or off camera, and it's the things that you don't want to let yourself realize because you're afraid of it. Letting that out to not only self but other people, that's a tough thing to do. And when you realize that stuff, you're really able to progress. When you own your demons, the things you got to realize and you got to work through, you ask yourself those questions, it really allows for someone to progress. So I think, asking yourself those tough questions that you don't want to answer, and embracing adversity.
Definitely. All right. So Apex Nation, Limestone
Apex Family.
Nation.
Yeah. Before we end here, I want to shout out Del Barton High School's wrestling team. They won their state team title today. I had a couple opportunities to work with those boys. They're straight gentlemen, hard workers, eager to learn. So caps off to you. Well earned. Keep the success going through the postseason. I want to see some NHSCA champs and All-Americans at Fargo.
Definitely keep it rolling, studs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Appreciate you, Matty.
Love you, man.
Love you, brother.